You mentioned something called
That's a big topic.
Primal Judo in the book. Oh man, I love when you're talking about Primal as if Primal is his own entity, and
Yeah.
you've got to talk Primal down, and
And you feel
gotta,
so schizo when you do that, but it's so good.
Yeah, no, I love this. So what is Primal Judo, and how does it apply to dating and relationships?
Yeah. Well, so primal, the idea that you have your kind of primal mind and your intellectual mind, these like two parts of you. And I use primal mind, especially in talking to guys, rather than our emotional mind or something, because it's not just feelings, it's like raw instinct and like hunger and I don't know, rage, all that stuff that we key into. You think of like a primal guy.
Yeah.
And what you can think of that part of you that wants all of that and that's fired up by all that is almost like an animal sub part of you. And so basically what you realize is that this isn't something you want to just suppress and push down, because a lot of guys will do that, right? There's like this part of me that's just fired up and going after things causes trouble if I just hand him the reins. So I want to like stuff him down. But the idea is that if you think like training a good horse or something, to be able to build that relationship between your sort of intellectual part of you and this like raw primal part, if you can get a good relationship between the two, then you can go places and you can unlock a lot of power. And so the idea behind Primal Judo is whenever Primal's just like really frustrated about something, and basically you're in a foul mood and you're down, can be depressed, whatever, is you hear that part of you out and let it spew. And if you do that, it'll sound something like, oh man, this guy, made me look bad in front of this girl that I like, and I didn't accomplish my goals, and I feel like a piece of shit. I suck. And what you do with that is you don't shut it up. You don't say that's not true. You say is, what are the desires in there? What are the drives in there? And you say, oh, you want to look good and you want to present yourself well in class. You want to chase after your goals better. You want all these things, and it hurts you that you don't have them. Well, man, what can I do to help you here? Let's find one thing out of this list and let's go after it 100%. And we're going to not think about anything else. We're going to go after this, and we're going to give you something to do with that frustration. How would you like to do that? And then Primal's like, yeah. And it's leadership. It's the school, like a man learning how to shepherd his primal drive well is the school of leadership. So masculinity is intrinsically about leadership. And so the idea of, okay, how do we then use that with a woman is that the way we've learned as men to shepherd our strong primal emotionality is actually what we do to hers too. And the skills end up transferring if you haven't just been like a slave driver or an absentee landlord to your own heart. If you have, then you can't be much good to the women when they're all up in arms. But if you have, you can get to some good places.
That's sort of a big theme in your book about you got to learn how to lead yourself first, and a part of that will carry over into your relationships. I really like that. Last question here before we wrap. You talk about dead bedroom and neediness, right? So the final chapter tackles the tough topic of dead bedrooms, and you say sexual neediness is the main symptom and it's pretty unattractive. Can you unpack that for us?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, sexual neediness, I'm honestly, Paul, I get triggered when any guy or any people online talk about male sexuality and refer to his sexual needs. I think that's just a weak frame. That's not That's just, she's not meeting my sexual needs. You need to be more willing and more generous to fulfill my sexual needs. Like women who are just like horny as all get out for their men and are all over them, they're not thinking in those terms. They're not. They are just moved by his frame and inspired by it and want to be in it and are just like doing anything they can to just unite themselves to it. And build that bond. And so what I say to men in this is we want to take sexual neediness out and replace it with the idea that we're just unapologetic about our desires. We're channeling our drives forward. We can, if there isn't a sexual opportunity right now, we can easily pivot, channel that drive into anything that increases our status in some area that we care about, and it feels good. And if we're doing that, if we're doing that in life, in your home, I find if I'm doing that, like, here's an example. I don't know if you've noticed this, Paul. Like, you go and you're like fixing something around the house, and you're not doing it because she nagged you about it. You're doing it because it's like, what the heck? I want it like this. I don't want it like that. I want it like this. So I'm getting the drill out and I'm like really intense on it. And then she's looking at your hand and she's noticing that little divot right there. And she's like, I wonder what those hands might do with me. And so the idea is, if you're pushing yourself forward, if you're using your virility in life, then that like opens her up. And then she's going to be like more likely to be all over you in bed, rather than you going in bed and just being like, harumph, you're not paying attention to me. Honey, you have not been prioritizing my needs. And then she's going to look at you like a little infant. And you don't want your woman to feel maternal about you guys. It's a trap.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think that's a big trap, that even like modern therapy teaches guys, it's like, oh, communication's the key to a healthy relationship. You just talk it out, talk to her about it. Tell her how
frustrated you are. Talk can substitute for action.
Right.
Like, well, what is this assumption?
Well, that's the thing though, is like, women are feelings based. It's not logic, right? So you can't logic her to have sex with you more. You have to inspire that attraction some way. Right. That's how it works. And that's where I think, a lot of, marriage counseling just is ineffective because that's how they lead with it, right? Like, oh, well, just, let her know how you feel about it. Well, it just makes you look more weak to her. Like you're just like a complaining little baby. Like you said, right? Like another child she's got to take care of.
Well, it's a weird thing, Paul, because like we're told that communication is key. And hey, not communicating, don't get me wrong, communication's great. It's great to communicate, but it's not sufficient. And the idea of that, like, well, okay, if I have no value, if I have no virtue, no like masculine virtue, if I haven't built a strong frame, but I just communicate really well, she's still not going to want to be in that frame.
Yeah.
Right. She's still, and you say, well, what do we do to develop our intimacy? Well, the thing to build intimacy is be someone she wants to be intimate with. It's not just let's work on our intimacy. And so that's why I say, and you probably find this true, that my sex advice is masculine leadership, my sex advice is marriage advice in disguise. And my marriage advice is masculine leadership advice in disguise. That's where we put forth our effort. That's where we move the needle. And then we find cascading downhill from that, all these benefits.
Yeah, no, that's essentially the red pill praxeology, and that's why it's more effective. And I have to make that distinction of red pill praxeology versus red pill trademark that you find on the internet, where it's all just about shaming women for being, promiscuous or whatever. It's like
it's night and day, man. They're like two completely opposite approaches.
No, like one's actually useful, and you'll find that guys that teach red pill praxeology, they actually like women. We don't hate women. We actually love them, and we want to understand them better and have more successful interactions with them. And that's what the whole thing is about. But you got these guys out here giving us a bad name. So, but I love that. No, like you talk about the captain and first officer dynamic, which straight out of Athol K.
Straight out of Athol.
And I was like, it works. It absolutely works when you are setting the tone and leading your relationship. Like, and you, like one of the guys in my wolf pack was saying how his wife's spending too much money. And we're like, dude, take back control of those finances. Right. And we're like, but you got to frame it as, I'm taking this plate off, this plate off your shoulders, right? Like I'm taking control of this so you can relax. I got this. And then a lot of women, they might argue with it at first, but then they'll realize like, oh man, I don't have to worry. I don't have to stress about the bills. Like he's got it all handled. And, it's like, it's all about setting that tone and leading. And when you do that kind of stuff, like women are like, man, I don't know what's going on, but I like this.
Right.
I don't, and that's what you want them to do. And some guy, he dropped a comment saying, do I do couples counseling? And I don't. I work with men specifically because if you bring a woman in and she sees the process, it changes the process, and so she'll start testing you more. Oh, are you doing this because of what your little coach said?
Right. Right. Because he's the authority figure in that. And then she doesn't get to be in his frame. She doesn't get to try out his frame. They're like both looking at the counselor. And
Yeah.
not that, I mean, I'm sure there are things where couples counseling can be very helpful, but this is a big blind spot. And it's honestly, Paul, if I can just be frank here, it actually, the success that you and I can have in this space, because I've got something similar. We've got a Reforge Marriage group where we're like, the guys are just going at it together. And the way men are just workshopping this stuff together. It's so cool. It's so cool to see our problem solving imperative just work for crushing these relationship problems.
Yeah.
And then, but it actually pisses me off some, because I'm just a software engineer who got my shit together and, and am sharing my thoughts with other people and creating some community around it. Because it's like, what am I going to do? Turn them away? And that's, I don't know anything. I don't have like a degree in psychology or anything like that. And yet I'm able to see so much impact because there's so much hunger. And I'm thinking we have whole industries devoted to studying these problems and giving people tool to help these problems. And they're not. They're not on this front because they're treating everything like this gender neutral, egalitarian, whatever. And guys are not getting the tools they need.
Yeah.
So I should not be able to be successful. You should not be able to be successful in this, but we are, because I think there's a Peterson quote on that, right? Where their opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. We're kind of seeing that culturally speaking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's a problem. It's definitely a disservice because they're trying to make it politically correct. It's got to be politically correct, but it's not effective. So, this has been a really great conversation, Gif. Can you give people your final thoughts, where to get the book and how they can find you online? Guys, it's The Way of Men with Maids by Gif Costa here.
Yeah. So that book, if you go follow me on X, it's just X/GifLasta. And there, on my pinned post, there's like a mega thread about the book. And at the end of that, there'll be a link to Amazon, or you can just go to Amazon and do a search for The Way of Men with Maids. Make sure it's the one by GifLasta and not the Way of a Man with a Maid, which is this sadomasochistic erotic novel from the last century.
Oh, wait, I want to get that one now.
Well,
I'll drop
my goal, is planting the flag of Christ and all this is we're going to get more reviews than that one.
Okay. Well, there you go. I dropped the link in the chat too. It's also pinned at the top. It's also the top link in the description. You should be able to find this book, guys.
Yeah.
And when
the title, just so you know, the title is a straight up Bible verse. The way of a man with a maid is like one of the things more wondrous than you can even imagine. So that's straight out of the book of Proverbs.
Yeah. You mentioned that in the book. I was like, got it.
New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe now.